You are sitting in a windowless briefing room in Quantico, the air smelling of stale coffee and ozone, when the director of the DEA lays a single manila folder on the table. You are 26 years old, a top-tier graduate of the academy with a background in forensic accounting and a penchant for high-stakes poker. Your life until this second has been defined by spreadsheets and simulated raids. The director doesn't offer a greeting. He tells you that the man in the photograph, Mateo El Santo Vega, has just executed 3 federal agents in Sinaloa. The agency needs a ghost, someone with no paper trail and the mathematical mind to navigate the most complex money laundering machine in the Western Hemisphere. You have 10 minutes to decide if you want to disappear. You don't take 10 minutes. You stand up, leave your phone, your wallet, and your government ID on the chair, and walk out the back door into a life that does not officially exist. 6 months later, you are standing in a humid warehouse on the outskirts of Culiacan, smelling the copper tang of blood and the chemical sting of gasoline. You are no longer an agent, you are the accountant, a disgraced financier who fled a fictional embezzlement charge in Miami. You have spent the last half year building a reputation in the low-level street tiers of the Vega Federation, using your ability to find missing decimals to prove your worth. Today is the escalation. One of El Santo's mid-level lieutenants, a man named Gallo, has been skimming from the weekly transport. You found the discrepancy in 48 hours. Now Gallo is tied to a chair, and El Santo himself is walking toward you, a heavy silver pistol tucked into his waistband. He doesn't look like a monster. He looks like a CEO in a linen suit. He asks you if you are sure about the numbers. You look at the ledger, then at the terrified man in the chair, and finally at the man who holds your life in his hands. You confirm the theft with a steady voice. El Santo nods to a guard, and the room erupts in a violence so sudden it leaves your ears ringing. As the body is dragged away, El Santo places a heavy hand on your shoulder. He tells you that trust is more expensive than gold, and from this moment on, you will be the one who ensures his gold is safe. You have just become the youngest inner circle member in the history of the Federation. 3 years pass, and the transition from informant to right hand is a blur of high-altitude flights and moral erosion. Your daily reality is no longer about gathering evidence for a trial that will never happen. It is about the logistics of a global empire. You manage a fleet of 12 Gulfstream jets, a network of 300 shell companies in Panama, and a private army that rivals the size of some National Guards. Every morning at 5 a.m., you present El Santo with a morning briefing that covers everything from the purity of the latest shipment from Colombia to the shifting loyalties of local governors. You are the filter through which all information passes. You realize that you have become the brain of the beast. The DEA hasn't heard from you in 14 months. The dead drops are too dangerous, and the information you have is so volatile that passing it could trigger a civil war that would kill thousands. You justify your silence by telling yourself you are waiting for the killing blow, but deep down, you know the truth. You enjoy the clarity of this power. In the Bureau, you are a cog. Here, you are the gravity that holds a billion-dollar orbit together. The weight of your position becomes a physical burden during the purge of the 4 plazas. El Santo suspects a coup. He asks you to identify the weakest links in the chain based on the flow of tribute. You spend 72 hours straight analyzing the ledgers, knowing that every name you highlight is a death warrant. You see the patterns, the slight dip in revenue from the Juarez corridor, the unexplained expenses in the Tijuana sector. You realize that the men running these plazas are not just criminals, they are fathers and brothers you have shared meals with at El Santo's estate. Your moral compass, once a rigid instrument, is now spinning wildly. If you lie to protect them and El Santo finds out, you die. If you tell the truth, you are responsible for a massacre. You choose the truth, framing it as a necessary restructuring to optimize margins. You watch on a closed-circuit feed as the plazas are neutralized. Your cold efficiency earns El Santo's absolute devotion. He grants you power of attorney over his personal estate. You now control the flow of $5 billion. You are no longer just an advisor. You are the architect of his immortality. By year 5, the lines between your cover and your soul have vanished. You sit across from the Minister of Defense in a private club in Mexico City, negotiating a non-interference pact that will cost the Federation $40 million a month. You handle the transaction with a detached professionalism of a Wall Street banker. You are the one who decides which politicians are bought and which are broken. You've mastered the art of the silver or lead ultimatum. Yet the ghost of your former life haunts the periphery of your vision. You receive a coded signal through a front company, a red alert from your original handler. They think you've turned. They are moving to extract you by force if necessary. You sit in your armored SUV, looking at the blinking light on your encrypted device, and you realize that you are a man without a country. To the DEA, you are a rogue asset who knows too much. To the cartel, you are the most trusted man in the world, which makes you the most dangerous. The crisis peaks when El Santo's health begins to fail. The empire begins to fracture as the scent of weakness spreads. The kingpin calls you to his bedside in a fortified mountain villa. He tells you that his sons are too impulsive, his generals too greedy. He wants to name you as the acting head of the Federation until his eldest comes of age. This is the ultimate trap. If you accept, you are the target for every rival cartel and every law enforcement agency on the planet. If you refuse, his paranoid guards will execute you before you reach the driveway. You accept. You spend the next 6 months running a war on 3 fronts. You authorize strikes against the Gulf cartel, you bribe a Supreme Court justice to overturn an extradition treaty, and you quietly begin siphoning hundreds of millions of dollars into an untraceable account in the Cayman Islands. You aren't doing it for greed, you are doing it for an exit. You realize that there is no going back to a desk in Virginia. You are either going to a coffin or a private island with a new face. The pressure of the dual life reaches a breaking point during a meeting with the Federation's top enforcer, a man known as El Verdugo. He has grown suspicious of your bloodless approach to management. He corners you in the counting room, surrounded by pallets of US currency, and asks you why you never carry a weapon. You look him in the eye, your heart hammering against your ribs like a trapped bird, and you tell him that men who carry guns are employees, while men who carry pens are owners. You remind him that his men's salaries, their family's safety, and the very ammunition in his belt are all provided by your signatures. You out-alpha the most dangerous killer in the country, using nothing but the sheer weight of your administrative dominance. He backs down, but you know the clock is ticking. You have become too powerful to be allowed to live once El Santo passes. One rainy Tuesday, El Santo dies of a stroke. The villa descends into chaos within minutes. The succession war begins before the body is cold. You don't panic. You have been preparing for this moment for 2,000 days. You trigger a series of pre-planned financial collapses that freeze the Federation's liquid assets, rendering the rival faction's private armies suddenly unpaid and restless. While the generals are distracted by the sudden disappearance of their payroll, you slip out through a service tunnel designed for the laundry staff. You have no luggage, no gold, only a single USB drive containing the decryption keys to every bank account, every political bribe, and every GPS coordinate of every mass grave the Federation ever dug. This is your insurance policy. This is your leverage. You surface in a small coastal town in South America 3 weeks later. You have a different name, a different face thanks to a discreet surgeon in Bogota, and a bank balance that could buy a small country. You sit at a beachside bar watching the sunset and pick up a newspaper. The headline is about the total collapse of the Vega Federation and the subsequent wave of arrests of high-ranking government officials. You see your old face on the most wanted list, right next to El Santo's sons. You feel a strange, hollow sense of accomplishment. You did the job. You dismantled the most powerful criminal organization in the world from the inside out. But as you look at your hands, you don't see an agent of justice. You see the hands that signed the ledgers of the purge of the 4 plazas. You see the hands that shook the blood-stained palm of El Santo every day for years. The moral cost is a debt you will never be able to repay. You realize that you didn't just infiltrate the hierarchy, you became its pinnacle. The accountant didn't just pretend to be a criminal, he was the most efficient criminal the world had ever seen. You wonder if the DEA intended you to go this far, or if they simply lost track of the monster they created. You know that somewhere, a team of agents is still looking for you, not to bring you home, but to silence the man who knows where all the bodies and all the money are buried. You finish your drink and stand up. The wind picks up, carrying the scent of salt and coming storms. Your life as the right hand is over, but the game of shadows never truly ends. You walk away from the bar already calculating the risks of the next 24 hours, knowing that in the world of high-stakes power, there is no such thing as a clean break. You are a ghost, a kingmaker, and a traitor all at once, and you will spend the rest of your life waiting for the moment the ledger finally balances. The transition from the sun-drenched beach to the shadows of international anonymity is not a descent into peace, but a horizontal move into a different kind of war. You find yourself in a high-rise in Singapore 6 months later, staring at a monitor that tracks the global movement of the very funds you once managed. You realize that the vacuum left by El Santo hasn't been filled by justice, but by smaller, more vicious predators. The intelligence you hold is the only thing keeping the global market from a catastrophic shock. You were contacted by a third party, not the DEA, not a cartel, but a shadowy consortium of private interests who want to manage the transition of power in the region. They offer you a seat at a table you didn't know existed, a level of hierarchy above even the dictators and kingpins. They call it the registry. You are faced with a choice that makes your previous 5 years look like child's play. You can take the information to the world, expose the rot, and likely be assassinated within the hour, or you can join this new, silent elite and use your skills to keep the world's chaos organized. You reflect on the young agent who walked out of Quantico with nothing but a folder and a sense of duty. That person is a stranger to you now. You have seen the internal mechanics of how the world actually works. The secret handshakes between enemies, the price tags on human rights, and the sheer, terrifying utility of a well-placed bribe. You understand now that power doesn't want to be destroyed. It only wants to be redistributed. You sit in the silence of your penthouse, the city lights below looking like a circuit board. You think about the lives you've ended with a stroke of a pen and the empires you've built with a series of keystrokes. You realize that you have become the ultimate middleman, the silent partner in the world's most dangerous transactions. The moral tension that once kept you awake at night has evolved into a cold, analytical curiosity. You wonder how much further the ladder goes. You decide to answer the consortium's call. Not because you want the money, you have more than you can ever spend, but because you have become addicted to the view from the top of the hierarchy. You have spent so long playing the part of the right hand that you no longer know how to be a person. You only know how to be the power behind the throne. As you pick up the secure phone, you feel a familiar surge of adrenaline. The high-stakes game is beginning again, but the rules have changed. You are no longer an undercover agent. You are no longer a cartel accountant. You are something entirely new, something the world doesn't have a name for yet. You provide the first coordinate, the first bank account, the first name, the first domino falls. You realize that the consequences of your actions will ripple out for decades, affecting millions who will never know your name. This is the ultimate power, to move the world while remaining invisible. You lean back in your chair, the weight of the secret world settling comfortably around you like a shroud. The hunt for you continues. The wars rage on, and the blood continues to flow. But from your vantage point, it's all just numbers in a ledger, waiting to be balanced. You are the only one who knows the true cost of everything, and as long as you hold the pen, the story is yours to write. The phone line remains open, a silent void waiting for your next move. You think about the director back in Quantico, probably retired now or moved on to a political appointment, and you wonder if he ever regrets sending you in. You realize he doesn't matter. No one from your prior life matters. You are the product of an extreme environment, a survivor of a psychological gauntlet that breaks 99% of those who attempt it. You have become the bridge between the legitimate world and the underworld, the translator for two languages that claim to hate each other but speak the same dialect of greed. You provide the second name, then the third. You are building a new hierarchy now, one where you aren't the right hand, but the architect. The stakes have never been higher, and the danger has never been more absolute. You wouldn't have it any other way.